I woke up on my birthday expecting love, maybe a small surprise, but instead my phone lit up with a message from my father that turned my stomach cold. Sold your future. Your sister deserves a new phone. Be grateful. My laptop, my lifeline for school, my only hope for the scholarship I'd been working toward, was gone. And with those few words, he made it clear. In this house, I was never the priority. But what he didn't know was that his message didn't break me. It awakened something far more dangerous. The morning sunlight filtered through the blinds, painting stripes on my bedroom floor. I stared at my phone, the message glaring back like an accusation. My hands trembled, not from the chill of the early day, but from the weight of betrayal. That laptop wasn't just a machine. It was the only tool I had to escape the mess my family had become. I remembered the countless nights I stayed up, textbooks sprawled across my bed, fighting to make sense of formulas and essays, pushing through exhaustion. It was my chance, my only chance, to break free from the cycle. But now it was gone, sold off to fund my sister's latest obsession. A phone. The kind she wanted, not needed. The kind that screamed status, while mine barely survived a cracked screen. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to shout that this wasn't fair. But years of being ignored had trained me to swallow the hurt and hold it inside. I scrolled through my messages, hoping for some mistake, a second text to fix the cruelty. Nothing. Just those cold words. Be grateful. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. Angry tears threatened, but I blinked them away. This wasn't the first time I'd felt invisible. Not by a long shot. Before I go any further, drop your location in the comment. Tell me where you're watching from. New York, Chicago, Lagos, London. I want to know who feels this one. And hey, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what comes next. My name's Harper. I'm 29 years old. And this is the day everything started to change. The house was silent except for the ticking clock in the kitchen. I could hear the muffled sounds of my sister giggling upstairs, probably showing off her new phone to some friends. I clenched my jaw. How could she be so careless about what she'd taken from me? Did she even understand? Dad's message wasn't just a slap in the face. It was a reminder of how long I'd been living in his shadow, the forgotten daughter. All my life, it seemed, I was the background noise, the one who did her best but never quite earned a place at the table. The last few years had been a balancing act between work, school, and trying not to lose myself in the chaos. I'd landed a part-time job at the local library to help with bills and save for college expenses, and every penny counted. That laptop was expensive, but I'd paid for most of it with overtime shifts and late nights. I thought it was mine to keep, mine to protect. But Dad thought differently. I tossed my blanket aside and paced the room. What kind of father sells his daughter's dreams? The thought churned in my stomach like a storm. I wondered if Mom knew, if she'd said anything. But the truth was, she rarely got involved in these battles. She kept her distance, maybe because she was tired, or maybe because she was used to Dad's way of handling things. My phone buzzed again. A text from my best friend popped up. Happy birthday, Harper! Hope it's a good one. I stared at the message, feeling like a fraud. How could it be a good birthday when everything I'd worked for was stripped away with a few cruel words? I forced a smile, typed back thanks, and set my phone down. Outside, the city was waking up. Cars honked, people hustled to start their day, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside a small apartment on the edge of town. I wanted to be invisible, at least for a little while, to hide from the disappointment, the hurt, the unbearable sense of being unwanted. But there was no escaping this. Not today. I sat down at the edge of my bed, hands clenched tightly in my lap. Memories flooded in. The nights I begged Dad for help with tuition, the times I overheard him praising my sister for her grades or her popularity. I was always the quiet one, the reliable one, the one who didn't cause trouble. But apparently I wasn't worth fighting for. I thought about the scholarship deadline coming up in just a few weeks. Without my laptop, How was I supposed to complete my application? How could I compete when the people who were supposed to support me were rooting against me? A wave of frustration hit me, hot and heavy. But beneath it, something else stirred a spark. It was faint at first, but growing. A refusal to give up, to be erased. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the bustling streets. Everyone was moving forward, chasing their own dreams. Why couldn't I? The day stretched ahead, full of uncertainty. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let that message define me. The text from Dad was a breaking point, but it was also a beginning. I might have lost the laptop, but I hadn't lost myself. I stared at my empty desk where my laptop used to sit, the absence of it like a hole in my world. The harsh morning light didn't soften the blow, and the silence of my apartment felt suffocating. It was my birthday, but instead of feeling celebrated, I was swallowed by a heavy weight, the reality that my father had sold my only chance to escape. I ran my fingers over the smooth surface of the desk, imagining the cold keyboard beneath my hands, the soft hum when it powered on. Everything I'd built, all the hours of late nights and sacrifices, vanished with that message. How could he do this to me? How could he choose her over me? I felt a mix of anger and disbelief, like my whole world had tilted off its axis. The betrayal cut deeper than I expected, and yet, amidst the hurt, a stubborn fire ignited inside me. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. I grabbed my phone and opened my notes app. Maybe I could borrow a laptop from the library if I could get there early enough before the crowds. My scholarship application was due in just 2 weeks, and every day wasted was a step closer to failure. The thought sent a pang through my chest. I refused to be the girl who gave up. The sound of laughter echoed from the living room. My sister was probably showing off her new phone to our mother. I clenched my fists. She'd gotten exactly what she wanted, while I was left with nothing. This wasn't just unfair, it was devastating. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I needed a plan. Sitting here, moping, wouldn't help. I had to figure out how to move forward, even if it felt like the ground beneath me was crumbling. My phone buzzed again. A message from my best friend lit up the screen. "Hey, I'm here if you want to talk. Don't let them get to you." Her words warmed me more than I expected. I typed back, "Thanks. I don't even know what to say right now." The truth was I felt lost. For years, I'd been the responsible one, the daughter who stayed out of trouble, who worked hard to build a future. Yet here I was, discarded like I didn't matter. I wondered if Dad even realized how much damage he'd done with those few words. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Hesitantly, I opened the door to find my neighbor, a middle-aged woman from down the hall. "Happy birthday," she said with a kind smile, holding a small bouquet of flowers. "Thank you," I managed, surprised by her thoughtfulness. "I heard about your laptop," she said softly. "If you need a computer to use, I have an old one you can borrow until you get back on your feet." My eyes filled with tears I refused to let fall. "That means more than you know," I whispered. Her kindness was a balm on a day that felt brutal and unforgiving. Maybe I wasn't completely alone after all. As she walked away, I sat back down at the desk and opened my laptop, a slow, clunky thing that had seen better days. It wasn't mine, but it was a lifeline. I spent the next few hours working on my scholarship essay. The words came slower than usual, tangled in frustration and pain, but I pushed through. Every sentence was a reminder that I was fighting back. Later, my phone rang. It was Dad. I stared at the screen, heart pounding. Should I answer? What would I say? The call went to voicemail before I could decide. "Harper," his voice crackled through the speaker. "I know you're upset. I didn't mean to hurt you. Your sister needed the phone for school. She's been struggling, and I thought this was the best way." His words felt hollow. Of course she needed a phone. She always did. But at what cost? I didn't call back. Instead, I texted my sister. Why did Dad sell my laptop without telling me? Minutes passed. Then a reply. "Don't make a big deal out of it. You can share mine sometimes. Share hers, like it was that simple. I stared at the screen, feeling invisible and small. Sharing wasn't a solution. It was a reminder that I came second. That night, I lay awake, thoughts swirling like a storm. The betrayal wasn't just about a laptop. It was a symbol of everything wrong in my family. The favoritism, the broken promises, the silence when I needed support most. But as dawn approached, I made a silent vow. I would prove them all wrong. I would find a way to succeed, even if it meant standing alone. The days that followed were a blur of library visits, long shifts at work, and stolen moments of studying. Every day was a battle against exhaustion and doubt. But I clung to my dream like a lifeline. One afternoon, as I worked on an essay in the library, a flyer caught my eye, a local nonprofit offering scholarships and mentorship to women in tough situations. I tore it down and tucked it into my bag. This was a new hope. I reached out the next day, explaining my situation. The response was immediate and encouraging. They wanted to meet me. That meeting changed everything. Sitting across from a woman who looked me in the eye and said, "We believe in your potential," felt like a balm to my wounded soul. She offered resources, support, and most importantly, a chance to rewrite my story. But even with this new light, the shadows of home loomed large. Dad's coldness, my sister's indifference, they were constant reminders of the battles I'd yet to face. One evening, I found Dad in the kitchen, his face tired but stern. "We need to talk," he said. My heart raced. Was this the moment I'd been dreading or hoping for? He sighed. "I know I've been hard on you, maybe unfair, but I've always wanted what's best for this family." His words hung heavy between us. "What about me?" I asked quietly. "When will I be your priority?" He looked away. "I'm sorry, Harper," he said. "Maybe I failed you." It wasn't an apology I expected, but it was a start. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time, I saw a flicker of hope, fragile but real. I was learning that sometimes family isn't just about blood. It's about the people who see you, who fight for you, who refuse to let you give up. And I was ready to fight with everything I had. The moment Dad admitted that he might have failed me lingered in my mind like a fragile thread I wasn't sure I could grasp onto or let go of. His words were quiet, hesitant, almost reluctant. Yet in the chaos of a life that had long felt weighted by silence and disappointment, those simple words offered a flicker of something I hadn't dared to hope for, acknowledgement. Still, the road ahead wasn't going to be easy, because the damage ran deeper than one conversation. It wasn't just about Dad or the laptop anymore. It was about everything I'd endured and everything I still had to overcome. That night, I sat on the floor of my small apartment, the old laptop humming quietly on the rickety table before me. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, the scholarship essay blinking back at me like a beacon in the dark. But the words felt hollow. The pain from home seeped into every sentence, twisting hope into doubt. I thought about my sister, her careless laughter echoing through the walls, the new phone flashing like a trophy that somehow belonged to her alone. I wondered if she even understood the cost of what she'd taken. Not just a laptop, but a part of me. I remembered the countless mornings waking up to the same routine. Dad focused on her, Mom retreating into silence, and me navigating the cracks in between. I was always the responsible one, the quiet fixer, the invisible daughter. It was like living in a house where I was present but unseen. But what was worse? The knowing that this pattern wasn't going to change overnight. That the people who should protect you might sometimes be the ones who hurt you most. Yet, even in the thickest darkness, there's a sliver of light. That's what I clung to. The scholarship was my way out, my proof that I could rise beyond the limits they tried to place on me. I couldn't let their choices define my future. The next morning, I woke early, rubbing sleep from my eyes. The city outside was buzzing with life, sirens, honking horns, and the endless hum of people chasing their own dreams. It was a reminder that life kept moving, whether I was ready or not. I grabbed a quick breakfast, then headed to the library, clutching the nonprofit flyer like a lifeline. Today, I was going to call them and set up that meeting. No more waiting, no more hoping in silence. As I stepped outside, the cool morning air hit my skin, sharp and bracing. I inhaled deeply, steeling myself for the day ahead. At the library, I found a quiet corner and dialed the number. A warm voice answered, patient and kind. "Hi, I'm Harper. I saw your flyer and I think I need help." The woman on the other end listened without interruption, offering encouragement and empathy. They arranged to meet that week. For the first time in a long while, I felt a flicker of hope. Work that day was brutal. The restaurant was packed, orders flying in faster than I could keep track. My feet ached and the stress gnawed at me, but I kept my head down. Every dollar I earned was a brick in the foundation of my new life. In the break room, I scrolled through my messages. A text from my sister popped up. "Why are you always so serious? It's my birthday too, you know." I stared at the screen, unsure how to respond. Did she even realize what I was fighting for? Or was she just wrapped up in her own world? I typed back carefully, "Some days feel heavier than others." She didn't reply. That silence was louder than any argument. Later that night, as I lay in bed, exhaustion creeping over me, I pulled out the scholarship application. I had to keep going. For me. For the future I dreamed of. The next few days were a blur of balancing work, school, and family drama. I learned quickly that juggling everything was a test of endurance more than talent. The nonprofit meeting was a turning point. Sitting across from a woman who believed in me, who saw beyond my worn-out clothes and tired eyes, felt like a balm to my wounded spirit. She connected me with tutors, resources, and even a laptop loan program. Suddenly, I wasn't alone in this fight. But home was a different story. One evening, I overheard Dad and my sister arguing about money. His voice was sharp, hers defiant. It was clear tensions were rising, the fragile peace cracking. I stayed silent, retreating to my room. The weight of being the peacemaker was exhausting. I longed for someone to stand up for me, to say my dreams mattered too. But I realized I had to be that person for myself. One day, while studying at the library, I noticed a flyer for a community college open house. It promised flexible classes and financial aid. Maybe this was the fresh start I needed. I called and scheduled a visit. The day of the visit, nerves buzzed through me. I wasn't sure I belonged there, not with my background and broken laptop. But walking through those halls, surrounded by others chasing second chances, I felt a spark of belonging. The admissions counselor was encouraging, explaining programs and scholarships that sounded like lifelines. I left with a packet of information and a cautious hope that maybe, just maybe, I could rewrite my story. Back home, things were tense. Mom seemed withdrawn, Dad distant. My sister continued to act like the center of the universe. One night, I found Mom in the kitchen, tears quietly slipping down her cheeks. For the first time, I stepped forward. "Mom, what's wrong?" She hesitated, then confessed how overwhelmed she felt, caught between supporting Dad's choices and watching me struggle. It was a fragile moment of connection, a crack in the armor. I promised her I'd keep fighting, not just for me, but for all of us. As the weeks passed, my determination grew. I applied for the scholarship with the help of my new tutors and the borrowed laptop. Each form was a battle, but I pushed through. The day before the deadline, my laptop crashed. Panic surged. But this time I didn't despair. I called the nonprofit, and within hours a volunteer delivered a new laptop to my door. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough. I stayed up all night finishing the application, fueled by a mix of exhaustion and fierce resolve. When I finally clicked submit, tears streamed down my face, not from sadness, but from relief and pride. I had done it. No one had given me this chance. I'd taken it. The journey wasn't over. There were still battles ahead, family dramas, self-doubt. But I was no longer the invisible girl in the shadows. I was Harper, and I was fighting to be seen. The days after submitting my scholarship application felt surreal, as if I'd stepped off a cliff and was waiting to see if I'd fall or fly. The constant ache of uncertainty gnawed at me, but there was also a strange sense of relief. I had taken control of my future, even if the path ahead was anything but clear. Home, though, remained a battlefield. The air was thick with unspoken tensions. Dad's quiet resentment lingered like a storm cloud. My sister's indifference was a sharp thorn in my side. And Mom's silence screamed louder than any argument. One evening, I came home to find the front door slightly ajar. My heart pounded. The house felt too quiet, too empty. I stepped inside, cautiously calling out, "Mom? Dad?" No response. I walked through the rooms, eyes searching for signs of life. Then I heard it, a muffled sob coming from the back bedroom. I pushed the door open to find Mom sitting on the floor, knees drawn to her chest, tears streaking her face. "Mom," I whispered. She looked up, startled, wiping her cheeks. "Harper, I didn't hear you come in." I sat beside her, the weight of years of silence between us suddenly breaking. "What's wrong?" I asked gently. She hesitated, then spoke in a whisper. "I'm tired. I don't know how to fix this family." Her words hit me like a punch. I'd always seen her as strong, the quiet glue holding us together. But she was breaking, too. "I don't know how to fix it either," I admitted. "But I'm trying." We stayed like that for a long time, the silence between us no longer heavy but shared. The next day, I found myself thinking about that moment. Maybe healing didn't mean fixing everything at once. Maybe it started with small steps, honesty, vulnerability, the courage to say, "I'm hurting." At work, I threw myself into my shifts, the rhythmic chaos a distraction from the turmoil at home. The customers came and went, each interaction a brief connection to a world beyond my own. One afternoon, my manager pulled me aside. "Harper, you've been doing great. I know things have been tough, but I want you to know you're valued here." His words caught me off guard. I wasn't used to praise. Mostly, I felt like I was barely holding on. "Thank you," I said, voice tight. He smiled. "Don't lose sight of your goals. We're rooting for you." It was a small moment, but it planted a seed of hope. That week, the nonprofit organization called. They wanted to schedule a workshop on financial literacy and college prep. They invited me to attend, along with other young women facing similar challenges. I hesitated at first. Was I ready to be around strangers? To share my story? But I knew I needed this. I needed community. The workshop was a revelation. Sitting in a room full of women who understood struggle, who shared hopes and fears, I felt less alone. We talked about budgeting, scholarships, balancing work and school. Each story echoed my own in some way. Afterward, a woman approached me. "I'm glad you came today," she said. "If you ever need help, don't hesitate to reach out." Her kindness felt like a lifeline. Back home, I found myself growing braver. I started speaking up, at least to Mom. We began having honest conversations about our fears and dreams. Dad remained distant, but I refused to let his coldness define me. One night, after a long shift, I returned to find a note on the kitchen table. It was from Dad. "I'm proud of you. Keep pushing forward." The words were unexpected, almost foreign, but they meant everything. I folded the note carefully, a small smile tugging at my lips. Maybe he was beginning to see me. Maybe, just maybe, things could change. As my birthday week came to a close, I reflected on how far I'd come. From feeling invisible and discarded to standing tall and fighting for my future. The journey was far from over. There would be setbacks, heartbreaks, moments of doubt. But I had learned something vital. Strength wasn't the absence of pain, but the courage to keep going despite it. And I was ready for whatever came next. The letter arrived on a chilly morning, just as I was heading out for work. I didn't expect much. Bills, junk mail, another reminder of how tangled life had become. But there it was, simple and stark, with my name typed neatly on the front. I slipped inside and tore it open, my heart pounding in my chest. It was from the scholarship committee. As I read the first lines, time seemed to slow. The words that followed were like a sudden burst of sunlight, piercing through months of gray clouds. We are pleased to inform you that your application has been successful. Congratulations. I let out a shaky breath, the weight I'd been carrying since that terrible birthday morning lifting, even if only a little. This was the validation I'd been craving, proof that I was more than the hurt and neglect I'd endured. The news felt surreal, and yet it fueled a fire I hadn't realized was still burning inside me. I rushed to call Mom. She answered after a few rings, her voice tired but warm. Mom, I got it. The scholarship. I'm in. For the first time in a long time, I heard her laugh, a soft, genuine sound that made something inside me ache. We're proud of you, Harper. So proud. The words settled over me like a blanket, comforting and real. But the celebration was short-lived. That evening, Dad came home later than usual. The tension in the air was thick, heavier than it had been in weeks. He sat down at the kitchen table, eyes tired but determined. I want to talk, he said. My heart skipped a beat. Was this going to be another confrontation? Another reminder of what I wasn't? Instead, he surprised me. I know I haven't been the father you needed. I've made mistakes, but I want to support you, really support you. His words felt like a bridge reaching out across years of silence. I nodded slowly, unsure if I was ready to trust, but desperate to believe. Over the next few weeks, Dad started showing up in small ways. He asked about my classes, offered to help with rides to the college campus, even surprised me with a modest but meaningful gift, a new backpack for school. It wasn't perfect. There were still cracks in our relationship, moments of awkwardness and unspoken pain, but it was progress. At school, the workload ramped up quickly. Balancing classes, work, and family responsibilities was exhausting. Some days, I felt like I was drowning in assignments and deadlines. But every time I felt overwhelmed, I reminded myself why I was here. For that scholarship, for my future, for the girl who never gave up. One afternoon, after a particularly grueling shift at work, I sat alone in my apartment, textbooks spread out and notes scribbled everywhere. My phone buzzed, a message from my sister. Can we talk? I stared at the screen, surprised. The conversation was hesitant at first. She apologized for how things had been between us, admitted she hadn't realized how much her actions had hurt me. For the first time, I saw a glimpse of the sister I wished I'd known. We talked late into the night, sharing dreams and fears in a way we never had before. It wasn't perfect forgiveness, but it was a start. The weeks turned into months. Classes became routine. Work remained demanding, but I was growing stronger. One day, walking across campus, I passed a group of students laughing, carefree. I smiled, feeling a sense of belonging I hadn't felt in years. This was my new family, the one I was choosing, the one that saw me. Looking back, I realized that my birthday text from Dad, the one that had shattered my world, had also been the catalyst for change. It had forced me to confront my pain, to fight for myself, and ultimately to find my voice. And though the scars remained, they were reminders of resilience, not defeat. As I closed my textbook that evening, exhaustion tugging at me, I felt something I hadn't in a long time. Hope. Because despite everything, I was still standing, still fighting, still dreaming. And I knew, without a doubt, that my story was far from over. The morning light streamed softly through the curtains, but I barely noticed. I lay awake, heart pounding, mind racing with everything that had happened over the past year. The girl who had woken up on her birthday feeling invisible and betrayed had grown into someone unrecognizable even to herself. A fighter, a survivor. I sat up and reached for my laptop, the one I'd fought so hard to get, the one I had almost lost forever. It wasn't just a tool anymore. It was a symbol of my journey, a testament to my refusal to be defined by others' neglect. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from Mom. "We're proud of you, Harper. Always." I smiled, a warmth spreading through my chest. Those words meant more than she could know. They were the balm for years of silence and pain. Later that day, I was heading to the community center where I volunteered as a mentor for young women facing the kind of struggles I once knew too well. I had come full circle, from needing support to offering it. Each smile I met reminded me why I'd fought so hard. At the center, a girl approached me shyly, clutching a worn notebook. "I don't know if I can do this," she whispered. I knelt down, meeting her eyes. "You can, because I know what it feels like to be invisible. But you're not alone, and you are stronger than you think." Her eyes lit up with hope, and in that moment I saw my own reflection, wounded but unbroken. The afternoon passed in stories, laughter, and quiet moments of courage. I left the center feeling lighter, more certain than ever that my past didn't dictate my future. That evening, Dad called. We talked, not just about schedules or errands, but about dreams, fears, and forgiveness. It wasn't perfect, and it never would be, but it was real. I knew healing was a journey without a map, filled with twists and turns, and I was ready to keep walking it. As I prepared for bed, I thought back to that terrible birthday, the text that had shattered my world, but also ignited a fire inside me. I was no longer the girl who felt invisible. I was Harper, the daughter who reclaimed her story, who faced betrayal and rose stronger, who refused to be defined by pain. And this was only the beginning.